The 2000s, a decade where legends were made, rivalries ran deep, and the NBA was as tough as ever. There were no super teams, just super teams constantly battling for glory. It was the era of unstoppable scorers, two-way monsters, and fearless competitors who defined a generation. And today, we're going to be talking about the best of them. These are the top 10 NBA players of the 2000s. To start at number 10, it's Jason Kidd. There aren't as many players you can call a perfect point guard, but J. Kidd, you can. He wasn't as flashy or a big-time scorer. What he was the ultimate floor general, and no one came close. Kidd had one of the best basketball IQs and court visions of all time, and his ability to control the pace of the game was just unfair. What really made the Kidd special was his defense. Among all point guards in NBA history, only Gary Payton had him beat on that end of the floor. Simply put, Jason Kidd was a cheat code, especially in the 2000s, where he solidified his greatness. He led the entire decade in assists and ranked second in steals and running the floor like a maestro and disrupting offenses like a seasoned thief. But forget the stats, let's talk about his impact. Before Jason Kidd landed in New Jersey, the Nets were struggling, finishing 14th, 12th, and 12th in the East for 3 straight seasons. They weren't just bad, they were borderline invisible. Then Kidd joined and boom, first seed in the East. Boom, finals appearance. And then the next season, second seed in the East and another finals appearance. This man took the Nets out of the gutter and led them to back-to-back finals appearances. Even though he didn't win a title in the 2000s, he was easily one of the most impactful players of that decade. Speaking of another impactful hooper, the 9th man on my list is Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk in the 2000s was revolutionary. Sure, now we have 7-footers shooting better than guards, but back then, that didn't exist. Until Dirk came around and started doing one-legged fadeaways over everybody. But he wasn't just unique, he was an absolute game changer. Check this. Did you know that the Dallas Mavericks are the second winningest team of the entire 2000s? Only behind the San Antonio Spurs. And that squad was a whole dynasty. And the reason for all of the wins? Dirk. Before Dirk Nowitzki was drafted, the Mavs were struggling. They were averaging 22 wins a season.
Damn!
For 10 straight years. But just 2 years after Dirk arrived, everything changed. Dallas went on a tear. 50-plus wins every single season throughout the entire 2000s, including the franchise record 67 wins in the 2006-2007 season. Dirk didn't just change the franchise, he rebuilt it. And he was an absolute scoring machine. Dirk ended the 2000s scoring the 3rd most points in the decade. The only real knock on him? Not winning that 06 championship. But we all know how that story ends. Next up is the 8th best player of the 2000s, LeBron James. The King was just getting started, but don't get it twisted. His impact in the league was immediate. LeBron James didn't just step into the league, he stormed in. From the moment he was drafted in 2003, as a teenager straight out of high school, he was already being called the chosen one. And somehow, he lived up to every bit of the hype. By the end of the 2000s, LeBron had already led the Cavs to their first ever finals appearance, despite being on the definition of a mid-team. He won an MVP, won a scoring title, and became the youngest player to everything. Youngest player to score 10,000 points, youngest player to record a triple-double, youngest to win an All-Star Game MVP. And he did all this while being the most physically dominant player the league had ever seen since prime Shaq, but with the court vision of Magic Johnson. The only reason he's not higher on the list is because he only started playing halfway through the decade. Obviously, since then, he's been number 1. Now at my 7th spot for best players in the 2000s is Steve Nash. In the 2000s, Steve Nash was the engine behind the 7 seconds or less Suns. And let's just say it led to the most entertaining team since the Showtime Lakers. Nash was nothing short of a maestro on the court. With his insane court vision, surgical precision passing, and off-the-charts basketball IQ, he made everyone around him better. But what really cemented him as a legend was his unbelievably efficient shooting. The 50-40-90 club is the gold standard for elite shooting efficiency, and in all of NBA history, only 9 players have ever made the cut. Larry Bird was the first to do it more than once. Then Steve Nash came along and did it 4 freaking times. And that record still stands to this day.
To this day!
So let's see. In the 2000s, Steve Nash became one of the best point guards of all time, one of the best leaders of all time, the most efficient shooter of all time. He finished with the 2nd most assists of the entire decade, and he won back-to-back MVPs. Captain Canada was really something special. Just like my 6th player from the 2000s, Dwayne Wade. 2000's Dwayne Wade was a physical phenomenon. His explosive first step and body control was unmatched, and his speed, oh boy. Let's just say they didn't call him the Flash for nothing. The man was a blur with a basketball. His ability to attack the basket made him a constant nightmare for defenses, and his defense was a nightmare for offenses. The guy could strip you cleaner than the IRS and block you harder than your ex after a breakup. The Flash was so elite at shot blocking, he ended up with the 2nd most blocks by any guard in the whole 2000s. What made him a legend was how he led. Before LeBron joined the Heat, D. Wade was the guy. And in 2006, he proved it, leading the Heat to their first title with one of the wildest finals performances ever. 34.7 points per game, a comeback from down 0-2, and he walked away with a ring and finals MVP. And that 2009 season, glorious. Led the league in scoring, became the first and still the only player to record at least 2,000 points, 500 assists, 100 steals, and 100 blocks in a single season. Like I said, Dwayne was insane. He locked you up, got buckets, made highlights. The dude was a legend. But even more of a legend is the 5th best hooper from the 2000s, Allen Iverson. AI was pure chaos wrapped in a crossover. He wasn't the biggest, strongest, or fastest, but he was the toughest dude on the court every single night, and an elite bucket getter. He led the league in scoring 4 times in the 2000s. 4! Dude was the biggest nightmare for defenses for nearly half a decade. AI was relentless in scoring and in leading his team. He dragged a scrappy Sixers team all the way to the finals in 2001 and even stole a game from the unstoppable Lakers, dropping 48 points. He was the blueprint, skilled, fearless, and impossible to guard. By the end of the 2000s, Allen Iverson had won an MVP, scored the 2nd most points of the decade, and recorded the most steals of the decade. And let's not even begin to talk about his cultural impact on the game. AI wasn't just one of the best players of the 2000s, he was an entire movement that changed the culture of basketball for forever. Now at number 4 is Kevin Garnett. If you look at the filthy trash talk and insane intensity, you'd see that Kevin Garnett is easily one of the best two-way players to ever touch a basketball. He was great offensively, but defensively, he was nightmare fuel. By the end of the 2000s, he had the most all-defensive first-team selections by anyone in the decade. The man could guard all 5 positions, talk trash the entire time, and still have enough energy to grab every rebound in sight. KG finished top 10 in rebounds per game every single year of the 2000s, and by the end of the decade, no one had grabbed more rebounds than him. But even with all the stats and an MVP to his name, one thing was missing: a ring. And that changed in 2008 when he landed in Boston and locked in. Not only did he lead them to the first championship in 22 years, he also won Defensive Player of the Year while doing it. KG wasn't just a good player, he was the heartbeat of every team he played on, a legend with elite skill and unmatched passion. Speaking of, the third greatest player from the 2000s who bullied everyone is Shaquille O'Neal. When it comes to unstoppable forces of nature, it doesn't get any more terrifying than early 2000 Shaq. In those first few years of the decade, the Big Diesel became literally the most dominant player in NBA history. Right out the gate, he kicked off the decade by picking up the 2000 MVP, which was just one vote short of being the first ever unanimous MVP. He won the scoring title and then proceeded to win 3 straight championships with the Lakers. And while putting up 2K-like video game numbers, he averaged 36 points and 15 rebounds through his 3 finals runs. Basically, Shaq in the early 2000s wasn't fair. He was too fast for bigs, too strong for wings, and he made most NBA players look like children. And if you made the unfortunate mistake of getting in his way, rest assured you were getting dunked through the floor. By the time the decade had ended, Shaq had 4 rings, 3 finals MVPs, an MVP trophy, ended up top 5 in both blocks and rebounds, and had cemented himself as the most dominant center since Wilt. And if he had more hunger and a greater work ethic, he might have just been the GOAT. Speaking of a big man in the paint who was an even greater player during the 2000s, that's number 2, Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan wasn't flashy, loud, or dramatic. He was just a problem. The big fundamental was the definition of dominance without the drama. He didn't chase the spotlight, and he definitely wasn't talking trash. I mean, half the time he barely said anything at all. He just showed up every single night and dismantled you with pure footwork, sky-high IQ, and surgical discipline. Tim Duncan was hands down the best two-way player of the 2000s, finishing the decade 7th in points, 2nd in rebounds, and leading the entire league in blocks. And when it comes to accolades, the man was decorated. He won 3 championships in the 2000s, along with 2 finals MVPs and 2 league MVPs. But Timmy wasn't just a silent killer on the court, he was the ultimate leader. Under his leadership, the Spurs didn't just win rings, they dominated the entire decade. They racked up more wins than any other team in the 2000s and became a full-blown dynasty. Tim Duncan never said much, his game did all the talking. And boy did it have a lot to say. But as great as he was, we all knew who the first was going to be. Before that, real quick, some honorable mentions. Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was an absolute force on defense. The man won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, which is still an NBA record. He anchored the Pistons to a championship in 2004, and he finished the decade with the 2nd most blocks and 3rd most rebounds. Next honorable mention is T-Mac. Tracy McGrady was one of the most exciting scorers of the 2000s. He was known for taking over games with his smooth scoring and unreal athleticism. No one can forget the iconic 13 points in 35 seconds game. And even though his teams didn't make deep playoff runs, his insane talent alone solidified him as one of the best players of the decade, along with Paul Pierce. The Truth was an elite scorer and clutch performer that helped lead the Celtics to an NBA championship in 2008 while winning Finals MVP. And crapping his pants, too. He ended the decade with the 4th most points scored and 7th most steals recorded. His all-around game, combined with his ability to hit big shots when it mattered most, solidified his place as one of the best players of the 2000s. And last honorable mention is his running mate, Ray Allen. Ray Allen was the 2000s greatest three-point shooter. He wasn't just a shooter, he could slash, pull up, and hit clutch shots like no one else. It's no surprise he was a Finals MVP candidate in 2008. Now for what you came for. A tribute, a remembrance, a recollection. The greatest player of the 2000s, Kobe Bryant. I'm gonna keep this short because to go into the full career of Kobe is gonna take me at least another 10 minutes to do it justice. That vid will come at a later time. Kobe Bryant wasn't just the best player in the 2000 to 2009 decade, he was the decade. His Mamba mentality became the stuff of legend, and even today it's still used as a blueprint for chasing greatness. Because the Black Mamba was greatness personified. The man was great at everything. Offense? Kobe led the entire 2000s in total points scored. He torched the Raptors for 81. Yeah, 81. The second highest scoring game in NBA history. He also led the league in scoring twice during the decade. Defense? Kobe locked up on that end too, earning 7 all-defensive first-team honors, second most of the decade. More than any big man, more than even Ben Wallace, who had 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He also led all guards in blocks for the decade and ranked 5th in total steals. But even all of that couldn't top what he did as an alpha. When Shaq left LA, Kobe didn't miss a beat. He stepped up, took the reins, and led the Lakers to solidify their place as the team of the decade. The Mamba mentality, his relentless work ethic, and unreal skill set are what made Kobe not just the greatest Laker ever, but the undisputed king of the 2000s.